Public brought this up. Same thing that was brought up when I ran last year, same question I asked April of 2010. We never see the dollar amounts and the numbers that are associated with non-classroom and non-teaching people versus administrative, even to the point of a solution last year was that part of the 300 people who were laid off was that a bunch of people from central office were redistributed throughout the district. I asked for information continually through the year, who those people were. I understand it's confidential. I'm a board member. I'm not going to share confidential information with anybody except other fellow board members who also wanted to know this information. And so people are shifted around. We still have no clear understanding if those people, the salaries associated with them, the change in their status, whether they were assigned to classes or not, whether they've shown up to the classes or not, whether the children have resulted in substitute teachers or not substitute teachers. These were very basic questions. I just wanted to follow a decent train of thought. Also, we had a situation where we restructured some schools. They were turnaround schools. And again, 50% of those staff members were sent elsewhere. I have never had an answer to my question of how's it been going? Was there a pre and post test that was going to go on? What I do get is people telling me I am too new to ask questions, I don't understand things, asking me if I'd like a hearing aid because I'm not hearing properly. When I ask to go back and vote on things again, you know, the budget still in this backup, which is very nice. It's very nice. I haven't seen it before tonight. And it also doesn't address what percentage and what dollar amounts have to do with administrative jobs in the Claremont building and jobs of people who were reassigned from this building that technically still have a job from this building, but now they're sitting in a school so they can technically be called a school staff member. I don't want to hear a year later, we don't know. And this board and this district technically doesn't have personnel. We technically don't have ed programs. So there's always some catch-22. You can't have the information because it's confidential. You can't have the information because you didn't ask for it at the right meeting. I think that this question has been asked in every meeting for the entire year by a lot of board members, and I think it's time to have some answers before we can seriously decide whether the decisions that the Board of Administration, because I find it very difficult to consider this Board of Education, it seems like it's more intent on saving administrative positions and hiding what. Look, if everything is needed, just put it on the table. We're all grown-ups. We've realized that there are certain positions that need to be supervisory. We've realized there are certain positions that the state or the federal government requires, and you have to have a corresponding person responsible for certain duties. But when members of the Board of Education are denied pieces of information, how can we possibly do this? So if you have the answer, I would like it now. That we have people in the room. I know that memo has gone to a lot of people. So if anybody knows.
What specifically are you looking for? How many people? You want names of people?
No. Okay, very simply, the dollar amount on page P.
Yes, P.
P21.
Page P21, yes.
the teacher salaries,
Right?
and the support staff salaries, and the school district administration salaries, plus whether there is anybody called a teacher aide or a teacher who is not in the classroom teaching.
Can anybody help Ms. Lester with that question? I don't really know. Is there anybody in the schools, is that your question? Is any staff member in the school who's not teaching? Is that your question?
Is there anyone, and I already heard of one person from the community, and I heard of another person from a board member recently, so I have some eyewitnesses, who are called teachers technically on the rolls, but are not actually in a classroom?
You want to know
How many and what dollar amount is associated with them, and what dollar amount are associated with the substitute teachers? How many have there been in the classrooms? How many students have been affected by substitute teachers instead of paid teachers? Those pieces of information, I asked for those in many different ways this year, and I did not get satisfactory answers for any of them.
Did you get answers at all?
I got some answers, but the answers didn't include salaries. It didn't break out who used to be someplace and is now someplace else. It didn't include, I said, you don't even have to put people's names in, but then there were no numbers and there was no title. The idea was to follow the cash. Where is it going? And I think everyone on this board, every one of us, board members, wants to know that every possible dollar that should be reaching a child through a teacher or a teacher aide or a special ed person or a child study team, that every single dollar that could possibly be put toward that student achieving, and when we have on average less than half of our students meeting AYP in reading and in math, that's where our money needs to go. That's where it has to go. We need to fix this. I don't want to give this to the state either, but I do not see that this is getting addressed, at least in the manner of reasonable questions that have been asked by elected officials.
Well, if I may, I must tell you, in my own case, I have developed questions over time, starting many days ago, and I get calls from my constituents as well. And when I get calls and I have questions myself, I've reached out to staff and I've gotten answers. But I just want to, I don't think we can answer that. I don't know if anybody's prepared to give you the specifics on what you asked for, but I'd like to ask Ms. Simmons, when were you given the numbers by the state that you actually began to start the process of doing the budget? Did you receive it back in December, November, September? When did you get the numbers that you had to start working with?
I believe we got that on February 24th, about. It's right after it was 2 days after the governor's address. I believe, I forget what the date was.
So this is something you've been...
So we don't get, exactly, we didn't get the state aid numbers. We didn't have an idea if they would increase or decrease the budget. We had no direction from the state until the end of February.
So in other words, to get everybody else involved, you really can't get anybody involved until we get the numbers, until we get the statistics from the state, because anything prior to that would be irrelevant, because we're dealing in some abstracts.
Correct, and in addition to that, we weren't given the option to start entering in the budget until the beginning of February. The process that the state gives us is very limited in regarding to how to prepare this 700-page budget. That advertised component that everybody keeps on complaining about, that's required by law. They give us that page they give us that to put on the website. We do not create that.
One of our problems is we obey the law. Whatever the law says, that's what we do. And sometimes it angers people, and I can understand it, because I would be angered as well. But we are restricted as to what we can do and what we can't do.
Through the chair.
The board also, I'm not finished, the board also makes the direction as to how a meeting is. Now, if the meeting wants to be changed in TV, then longer minutes, That is something the board has to decide, not just me, it has the entire board, and we will address that. It's so be it if the board members want to do that. But we just can't change something today, we just can't change it because we have policy. That's why you have policy, so you follow policy. That's why the state has rules, because you follow the rules. We can't break the rules. If you start breaking the rules, then everything, you'll be sitting here in PS 11, you'll be sitting in C caucus where the state superintendent, and you'll be sitting down in Trenton. Maybe that's where you want to go, fine. Somebody has a comment over here, Ms. Lester.
Through the chair, it would not be breaking anybody's rule to run a couple scenarios with macro numbers in them. Little teeny school, I was board president of for a while, learning community charter school, with no administrators in it. We had 3 scenarios of our budget that we looked at every month's board meeting. We assumed, even starting at the beginning of the year, that if we heard hints of money being cut, that we were going to have to rearrange things that we were doing. I brought this up earlier in the year as well. Just because it's not the mandate of the state does not mean it would be breaking a law to have something and a few scenarios done on a macro level ahead of time.
I do know I was given a very, very concise document here, which helped me a great deal. It has a breakdown of every school and an interpretation of the 2010, 2011, and 2011, 2012, was greatly beneficial because it broke it down by schools. We never had gotten this before, and I want to thank whoever put this together because it's very helpful to me. Mr. Waterman has a question.
I just want to point out that, despite the fact that the state has given us what we've gotten in the last couple of months, it was mentioned in the meeting that Dr. F said we hired too many people. He said we hired too many people. So I said, well then why do we hire too many people? Why did we promote too many different people from the very beginning? And why waiting now to lay off people if we hire too many people? So as far as I'm concerned, this process has been started a long time ago without any information from the state. We could have been looking at that in the very beginning. It would have been the most responsible thing to do. So we want to lay off 311 people now.
Ms. Mack has a comment, please.
Thank you. I wanted to give my, is this on? I wanted to give my board members a chance